Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and we are just about 2 weeks away from Dragonflight's launch, which is actually insane to think about. I think, what, 16 days, 17 days right now, give or take, depending where you are in the world. And I want to start looking at destruction, demonology, and affliction damage output. We've done a handful of keys on stream. Some have been uploaded to the channel here, looking at demonology, Destro, and Aff and Plus. That's more AoE based with like a mix of, it's like a mix of single target and AoE. But in this video, I want to look at like single target damage profiles, damage output for Destro, Demo, and Affliction, looking at what I consider probably the better builds for each spec, comparing them in a single target scenario, and then going from there. Now, I most likely will make a video over the next few days looking at like AoE comparisons of Demo, Destro, and Aff, but I didn't want to, number one, overload this video with so much information, and number two, I think it's important to look at and talk a bit more about like what's good for Demo and Destro and Aff and what can be buffed, like Affliction, because Affliction is pretty bad. So yeah, so a few things before we get too far in the video. I want to give a million thanks to all my supporters and everybody on Patreon. Thank you for all the support there, guys. I really appreciate it. It helps me continue doing what I'm doing, creating content for you guys, and I appreciate it just 10,000 times. Number two, the Dragonflight Warlock spreadsheet is indeed now live, like as in public. I put a video out last night talking about it. If you want, you can look back on that video and check it out. There's a link for you there. I'll try and put it down in this video description if I remember, but I'm getting old, my mind is going, but I'll do my best. And number three, the weak auras and profiles that you see on my screen here in this testing, they're all indeed for free, available in my Wago, !WA in chat, like Twitch chat, and or my Discord will pull it up for you. I'll be making a video most likely over the next week or so before we get into like launch videos, like guides and leveling guides and all that, looking at my UI that I have planned on using at least heading into Dragonflight. So if you've been hoping for that, that should be coming soon once we get a few more, I guess, spec deep dive videos out. So all that being said, let's just jump into it, starting off with destruction. All right, so jumping into destruction here, this has been the build that I've had the most success with in single target. The class traits, just basic DPS traits. I mean, like Wrathful Minion, Demonic Inspiration, Synergy, Soul Conduit, and the Eyeball if you want it or whatever, it's fine. This tree is the same basic all the time. We're looking over here. So the main talents to hit on here, Roaring Blaze for more fire damage, Channel Demon Fire, Immolate, Incinerate, Conflict Rate damage increase, just good all around. Having it this early in the tree is really nice. It's an early option, it's super sick to get. Explosive Potential for a reduced cooldown on Conflict Rate, which gives a, like, I guess, I mean, theoretically a higher uptime on Roaring Blaze, right? CDF into Raging Demon Fire. We're going into Havoc, whatever this row is here, Havoc and Mayhem into either Cry Havoc or Pandemonium. They're sort of like irrelevant. I mean, if you're in a single target setting, they pretty much are, but you have to go through here to essentially get Backlash and Scalding Flames. You can go through here. I think this talent's pretty bad either way, but you have to go through here. You can go through here, but you spend one more point because you go 1, 2, 3 to get into here versus 1, 2, and then it comes down. So a bit of an odd placement on like this node and this node. I wish this was here. This was here, but that's the world we live in. Other points of mention, obviously Flashpoint, Eradication, Ashen, Infernal, Crashing Chaos, Wilfrid's, or Grand Warlock's design. This makes you a literal machine gun of Chaos Bolts whenever you have your Infernal down. It's exceptionally strong. Very, very good. A lot of fun to play with. Let's see it here in a minute in combat. Now we're playing Ritual of Ruin here, and I'm only really in this row just to grab Burn to Ashes. So there's been a lot of back and forth on Burn to Ashes and beta, in like single target and raiding. I've enjoyed it. I think it's pretty good. You're playing Madness here too. So like Madness and Crashing Chaos, you're pretty close to capping on shards a good bit, so you will overcap on Burn to Ashes from time to time. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. You can weave like an Incinerate between Chaos Bolts due to the duration increase on Madness, the effect, but even if like it just sort of happens, but Burn to Ashes gives you a lot of consistent damage outside of your Madness dump windows where you don't have your Infernal down. It's just like, all right, Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, Chaos Bolts, whatever. Then like those 3 or 4 Incinerates you're casting afterwards to build shards, they also hit really hard with Burn to Ashes. And when you're in your Madness windows, you can go, all right, Bolt, Conflict Rate, Bolt, there's Bolt, Bolt. Coming out of that, you can cast 4 Incinerates because you have 4 stacks of it, which is great. It works pretty well when it caps at 4 stacks here. The final trait being Chaos Incarnate, it's just strong. It probably sways you more towards Mastery gear, but if you're in like a single target setting or a Havoc Cleave setting, I think you want Chaos Incarnate. It's just pretty strong overall. So let me actually drink a flask here briefly. Now, I'm going to try and do like a 3.5 minute, I guess, damage event. I don't know, like a test here, depending on like how long this goes for. Variance is a thing. RNG is a thing. Even with Chaos Incarnate, it depends on Soul Conduit refunds and a few other things along the way. But this, for me, has been the best build. I have seen people, instead of going through these 3 points here, going Shadowburn, Conflagration of Chaos, 2 points, and 2 points in the Ruin. That has not been as good for me. I've tested it multiple times. Maybe it ends up being better, but I've tested it a lot, and this build just feels better. So yeah, so getting into it, no flashpoint here. We're just going to open up on a precast Incinerate, into an Immolate, drop the rock, Conflagrate, Horn of Valor, CDF. I have the tracker up here if you want, and begin your Chaos Bolt dump. Watch our shards here. Like, watch how many shards we have. There's Burn to Ashes stack, there's Crashing Chaos. You sort of just have to dump here, and if you don't, you're just going to cap on shards. It's just sort of how it is. The playstyle's awkward, but I mean, it works out in the end. It still makes for a lot of damage overall. There's a free Chaos Bolt proc from the actual Ritual of Ruin, and we have 4 stacks of Burn to Ashes buff here. So these Incinerates, 70k, 32k, 33k, a lot. And that helps a tremendous amount with damage smoothing outside of your Madness dump windows. So we're at 4 stacks again here. I'll pull off, cast a handful of Incinerates, wait on its Conflagrate for the CDF, which we have Roaring Blaze up for. We CDF. We can dump some bolts again. We can go Bolt, Incinerate, dump 1 stack there. Bolt again with the Madness buff still up. There's that. And this is the gist of it. I've maintained, depending on RNG and things, about 42 to 43k, roughly, coming out of my second Infernal. Which, compared to Destro in the past, like in the early parts of testing on beta, is much, much higher. Destro received a good bit of buffs, like, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago before raid testing began. I believe the Chaos Bolt to Incinerate to most of its abilities. It got a huge sweeping nerf like really early into Alpha, which was probably unwarranted. Some things were hitting hard, some weren't, but it was a very large nerf. Thankfully, though, these changes, or these buffs, have made it, I'd say, a contender once again. So we have Infernal coming up in about 30-ish seconds here. We're falling a little bit lower than usual damage-wise, but RNG's RNG. I burst to over 60k in the openers before. I think we hit like 55k. RNG's RNG. It is what it is. So we can go like Bolt here, Incinerate, Bolt, Incinerate, Conflagrate for CDF. There's that. Immolate extension right there. We have Infernal coming up in about 20-ish seconds here. We have 4 and 9, which works out well. Didn't even need to refresh Immolate there, but it's fine. Build for 1 more dump window here. I think we're fine. We can go double Incinerate. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll Incinerate, Bolt, Incinerate, Bolt. We can Conflagrate. We can CDF. Put the rock down. Pop the horn. Conflagrate. Couple shards here. Dump these stacks really fast. 1, 2, 3. And start dumping the Chaos Bolts. And once again, watch our damage here. 37.5k. 38.7, and we have like 6 bolts left. Bolt, refresh the Immolate, a free bolt, bolt, and you could be weaving some Burn to Ashes stacks here, depending on where you're at. Just like shard generation wise, it depends. It's sort of RNG, but this build is really strong when it comes to consistent damage. I feel overall about 41k, a bit lower than what I've usually seen, like 42 to 43ish, depending on RNG and all that, but. Pulling up the damage breakdown here, we're sitting at around 35% Chaos Bolt damage and 25% Immolate or Incinerate damage. Max Incinerate of 72k, that's actually low. I've seen like 95k Incinerates. Our max Chaos Bolt being 110k. This is actually low. Immolate being about 10%, CDF being about 9%, roughly 9 to 10, right around there. But it's a very simple build. You cast Conflagrate to keep Roaring Blaze up whenever you're casting CDF and whenever you're casting Incinerates. You cast Chaos Bolts to build Burn to Ashes stacks, and that's most of the gist of it. I'll call it like 41.5k. I've seen 42k roughly in single target, but this build has been about 2k ahead of builds that go into like Ruin and Conflagration of Chaos. I don't think they're bad, but I can't seem to pull higher damage playing Shadowburn, Conflagration of Chaos, and Ruin. I think this build's solid. It's exceptionally strong in Havoc base cleave. If you wanted to put 2 points in Rolling Havoc here, you can just simply pull points, I guess, from Scalding Flames. Let's go like this instead. And fill the exact same tree out. Just like we were saying early on, even when, like, you know, early alpha hit, Destro was incredibly customizable. Like, the toolkit's there for single target, Havoc cleave, big AoE with different builds. It just depends on end tuning. But as of right now, I think it's in an okay spot. We're not at the top of the tree here. But the build's not bad. It's pretty simple to play, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. Alright, so when it comes to Demonology, there are like 3 different builds that are being played right now in single target. This is going to be more the pet build, no Nether Portal stuff, no Demon Bolt stuff, no like Fell Covenant, no Power Siphon. Mostly just pet amps, Demonic Strength, Biolphine, Grimoire Felguard, Fell Might, Fell Sunder, Pact of the Imp Mother, which I'm not really sold on yet. We're just trying it out and seeing how it goes. Expendables, Tyrant, Grand Warlock's Design, the normal pet stuff, right? Now, unfortunately for me and everybody else who likes playing these builds aren't incredibly complicated and everything, based around like, you know, nether portal synergies and all the above. We have 11 dog stacks here. It's not going to matter because build's pretty bad. But the unfortunate part about this build is that it's just not incredibly strong. We got the bug, very nice, when it comes to single target stuff. We'll open up here, casting Grimoire, cast a Vile Fiend, build the 5 shards here. Shadow Bolt, call Dreadstalkers, see if we get a refund. We did not, so go Shadow Bolt, hand, Shadow Bolt, we'll hand again, and then go Horn, whatever trinkets you have, Tyrant, Demonic Strength, hand to Gul'dan. And this is basically the same thing you've been doing out of retail for 2.5 years now. You're casting your Grimoire, Felguard with every other Tyrant, you're playing Wilfrid, you're casting a Vile Fiend in every single Tyrant. I should have cast Dogs there, but it's no big deal. The burst damage here, right off the bat, not as strong as Destro, not even as strong as Aff, realistically, hitting 46, 47k roughly, even with like better procs in the opener. And this build just feels like it's missing damage. And the unfortunate part is I don't really know where to put it, because if you buff Tyrant, for example, if you buffed, I don't like this 4-piece bonus either. If you buff Tyrant, for example, you're buffing Nether Portal build, you're buffing, you know, Demon Bolt build, you're buffing all the builds exactly the same, right? There's not one thing that I think really differentiates between like this build and Nether Portal and or Demon Bolt. If you buff one thing, it's going to buff them all. So we'll see where this goes tuning-wise. We have a Tyrant coming up again here, so we'll cast like Vile Fiend. Cast a Shadow Bolt, it's fine. I'll just cast Dogs. I'll wait half a second. It's fine. Cast Dogs, Bolt to 5, and just go hand, Shadow Bolt, or Demon Bolt, hand, Demon Bolt. We'll just hand again, hand one more time. We got a proc there, Tyrant, and Demonic Strength. But you can already see the damage is low. We're at 37k roughly, a minute and a half in. It's not going to get much better. We have a Tyrant here. We might break 40k, we might not. A lot of this is just due to how poor Tyrant is as well. Even with him just being up, his damage is sitting at, where is he at? He's at 5.5%. It's just terrible. We're coming out of our second Tyrant now, right? Yes, we are playing Wilfrid's or Grand Warlock's design, the cooldown reduction talent, and not Reign of Tyranny. Even if you play Reign of Tyranny, it's just incredibly undertuned. There's a bug or some weird interaction with FTS, like from the shadows, not buffing Reign of Tyranny, or not buffing Demon Fire from Reign of Tyranny Tyrants. I believe it fully buffs regular Tyrants, but it's not fully buffing Reign of Tyranny Tyrants, which makes it even worse. I don't know if it's a bug or it's intended, but this build is unfortunately just not doing anywhere near the damage of Nether Portal or Demon Bolt. It's just not very good. Now, we are shifting away from like Decon. Like we're not gonna have Wilfrid's and Decon together anymore. We're not gonna have Grand Warlock's design and Reign of Tyranny together anymore, right? So that'll just straight up devalue Tyrant, right? Decon and Reign are nowhere near the same power level. Grand Warlock's design shifts some power from your Tyrant to your pets because it empowers pets more often, more frequent pet extensions, more frequent pet damage amps. But so like it's hard to tell the difference between playing Reign of Tyranny and saying, okay, Tyrant's doing, you know, 6.8% instead of 4.7 when, you know, Grand Warlock's design is empowering every pet you have here as well. But either way, I tested both a bunch. This build, the pet-based build, whether you're playing Reign or Grand Warlocks, is just not very good. It's the worst version of Demo. The build that is doing decently, well, probably the best for me that I've seen basically anywhere, is the Nether Portal build. This build has a very high burst potential. I think this build is the best build when it comes to power infusion, being a PI target if you're playing Demo. And that is because building into a Pit Lord, flask up here, building into a Pit Lord via Gul'dan's Ambition and Ner'zhul's Volition, PI helps with that a good bit. So this build's playing Nether Portal, obviously Imp Gang Boss, Nether Portal, Ner'zhul's Gul'dan, same Tyrant thing you're playing, Grand Warlock's design, and Torrent, Expendables. We're not playing Dreadlash and single target, it's not really needed as much. Vile Fiend, Grimoire, and yeah, so I will say this build is very, very RNG. There are times you get really good procs in your Pit Lord. He'll come out and do 500k. There are times you get very little procs and he'll do 280k, and that will make your damage swing wildly. So opening up 5 shards Portal, Grimoire, Vile Fiend. We got a dog proc sick with Soulburn for a shard, hand, Shadow Bolt, hand. I think the Tyrant here now. I think just to go into Tyrant, we can go hand, hope for a refund. We didn't get one, but it's fine. We can strength. The Pit Lord spawns about now. He has 12 stacks. This should be a big boy. It should be a good one. Watch the burst damage here. 63k, 64, 66. We hit 70k, maybe? 70k? 70k here. 70k. This is where the burst lies. 385k Tyrant. I'll put this weak war down below in the video description for those that want it. 385k Pit Lord, not Tyrant. And that's the big thing, right? Pulling up my overall damage. He did, if I can pull it up here, he did a pretty good bit. He's sitting at 13.8, 384k. But the big thing is that he will not be back around for another 3 minutes. But the good thing is that we're playing Wilfred's or Grand Warlock's design, so we can still Tyrant every minute, whether it's a Pit Lord Tyrant or a non-Pit Lord Tyrant. So we have it coming up in about basically now. So we're going to go Vile Fiend. We can Shadow Bolt here, cast our dogs. We got a proc, which is great. Hand, Demon Bolt, hand, Demon Bolt. We got a proc. We can just go hand here. It's fine. Hand into our Tyrant, into our Demonic Strength. And look at our damage here. We're at 45k a minute and a half in. Once again, a lot of that being from Nether Portal carrying because of the huge burst the Pit Lord brings. But you can help sustain that damage with a Tyrant and other, I guess, Grand Warlock's design buff pets, more Tyrants being out every so often. We're at 46k. We have Tyrant again in about 40-ish seconds here. Now, I don't know what happened there. The weird thing with this build, I guess like the interesting thing with this build is that, so we have Grimoire in about 15. We don't have Portal for about a minute, and Portal doesn't get any CDR like, Tyrant does. So I've actually just been straight up popping Grimoire right now on cooldown. Well, like with this Tyrant, not holding it for another Portal is what I'm saying. Depending on fight duration, it might be a good idea or a bad idea. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, I mean, I'm looking to pop my Grimoire, well, basically now. So we'll Grimoire, we'll Vile Fiend. This is a bit of a scuffed Tyrant, but it's fine. We get a Calling proc. Maybe? One Calling proc, please. Dogs. We'll just double hand. It's fine. We can go hand, pop the horn, hand, Tyrant, Demonic Strength. And we're going to gain a good bit of value here. So we're sitting at 227. We'll go into the next portal just because portal's a major part of our damage. And once again, if you're getting PIs, I think this version of Demo scales the most by a pretty good margin. Like the pet build probably gains a bit of value. The Demon Bolt build gains maybe a little bit more pets, but this version, being able to empower your Pit Lord, I mean, he's sitting at what? He's sitting at like 5.5% of my damage right now, but he hasn't been out literally in, nearly 3 minutes. And I will say, this damage, like comparatively to other pulls I've had, seems relatively low. I've seen like 48k at this point playing Portal builds. But even with that being said, we have Tyrant here literally in about 8 seconds. So we're going to go here, one more hand cycle, and we're going to Portal. So hand, we can launch this last bolt, open the Portal, Soul Burn, Vile Fiend, hand, Demon Bolt, hand, Demon Bolt. You can get a refund. That's sad, but it's okay. We'll cast one more Bolt, Soul Burn one more time. We'll Tyrant here. I might miss one final hand cast. Probably will. So probably, maybe, possibly. We'll see. How big's the Pit Lord? He has a 12 stack. This is a decent sized Pit Lord. Damage 43k, 44k, 44.2, 44.5. And once again, if you're getting PI here, your damage spikes much more than that. That was a 400k Pit Lord, for example, right? And to be honest, I scuffed the portal setup a little bit. So, and unlike Destro or Aft, or dropping off a bit, the Destro and Aft, I guess, test here, we're 2.5 minutes. This is 4 minutes, and we're sitting at 45k. And we have Tyrant again, literally in about 20-ish seconds with a Grimoire in it. So, like, this has been the biggest numbers to me overall, but it's very RNG. It's very volatile. If you get big Pit Lords, good RNG from this, giving you another pet spawn, which affects this, your damage can be insane. I've seen 15 stack Pit Lords destroy everything. I've seen 9 stacks, not do much damage at all. So this build's a bit RNG, a bit volatile. The highest high end, hands down, especially with PI and Lust. Probably one of the lower low ends, but probably not as low as, well, pet build, unless you totally scuff the Pit Lord. So this is what, like I said, from what I've seen, been the best build in single target. Demon Bolt's close, though. Let's take a look at that. All right, so this is the Demon Bolt build of Demonology that I've been playing recently. Key talents here: Power Siphon, Fell Covenant, more Demon Bolt damage amps here. Sack Souls for more Demon Bolt damage amp here. Fell Thunder for more damage taken. From the Shadows applies Dreadbite, or applies Dreadbite applies from the Shadows, which increases Shadow Flame damage taken. Demon Bolt is Shadow Flame damage. Carnivorous Stalkers, a chance to apply FTS again if they Dreadbite one more time. And Grand Warlock's design for just big, more pets out, big ball of like Demon Bolt synergy. So the big thing with this build, you're micromanaging Demon Bolt procs and their damage effects like this. this, even this around FTS, and trying to get every amp stacked for the biggest bolts possible. If your bolts crit during your Tyrant being out, which is like max stack souls value, you do a lot more damage, obviously. This build's pretty RNG. If they crit, you're zooming. If they don't, you're doing okay damage, but it's RNG, like Nether Portal. But you have more frequent windows of RNG, and the build's pretty tedious to micromanage. So there's a lot going on here. I'll try and talk you through it. Sorry. So we have 6 stacks of dogs here, not a big deal. Won't make that much of a difference either way. The cool thing here, 1 point inner demons means you have 2 imps out regardless, so you can pre-power siphon bosses. Let's say that we're pulling the boss soon. Pre-power siphon, why not? We got 2 stacks of core. Cool, we're going to the boss. So start pre-casting Shadow Bolts. Open up Grimoire, build the 5 here. Cast dogs. We'll build the 5 again. Build the 5. Hand. Bolt. Hand. Got a proc. Bolt again. Hand. Tyrant. Now, we're not going to Horn of Valor here. We're going to Demonic Strength. We're not going to Horn of Valor, though. We're going to keep building imps and shards, everything else here for this Power Siphon and for Dog Chomp. So we have Shadow Bolts here, Hand, Power Siphon, Dogs, Horn of Valor, Bolt. Bolt, 46k, 45k. They didn't crit. If they crit, they would have been like 90k. You can build more imps, technically, depending on procs and everything else. Just sort of RNG if you get like FTS, rechomps, all that kind of stuff. I've seen 110k bolts. I've seen 120k bolts. Depends on just what's going on, variants and all that. Now, the big thing, we can cast dogs here. We have PS coming up in about 4 seconds again, so I'll build some imps here. Cast this hand, get a few more out. Power Siphon, Bolt. Hand, Bolt, Bolt. But the big thing, look at my Fel Covenant. It's pretty easy to get lost when you're just casting a million bolts back to back to back to back and forget about your Fel Covenant buff. You have to manage that, keep it at 4 stacks. If you lose it, you can restack it, but you lose a lot of damage behind your Tyrant and everything else. Or your stack souls, your bolts, all the above. So we're going to Tyrant again here, Demonic Strength. Our damage is like surprisingly low. I'm going to be honest here. We're going to Hand to Gul'dan, keep building a bit. We got a rechomp, so we can just build a couple more here. We can Hand, Power Siphon, just Bolt, and Bolt. 45, 30k, 71k. I've seen much higher bolts, but I've seen honestly higher damage in general from this build. This is the low end of RNG. This is just when no bolts crit. It has 1 bolt crit. 3 have. 1 hit for 71k. This is the lower end of RNG. At times you rip massive bolts on pull and do 105k, 110k bolt back to back. At times you do 45k and 50k. Just RNG, all the above, right? So like this build is fun. It's enjoyable. There's a lot going on. A lot to micromanage, all the above. I've seen higher high ends of this build. This is actually a pretty low pull here. I'm going to say like, I'm probably going to tack on a couple thousand more DPS. I've seen it like certainly above pet build, but like a bit below portal build in most of the pulls I've done. But once again, they're both incredibly volatile. Bolt, 18% of your damage. The highest bolt I had was 71k. I filmed this segment 5 minutes ago. I had an 84k bolt. I filmed it 10 minutes ago because I messed something up. I had 108k bolt. That's just RNG. It's how the spec is. All the above, depending on other things and all of that. So, Demon Bolt being at 18%, Fellfire Bolt from Imp Gang Boss being buffed obviously a bit there, Hand to Gul'dan here, Tyrant being terrible at 3%, not much to see. It's RNG. I put this build around like 40 to 41k typically in single target, but you're having to micromanage once again. You're having to micromanage FTS from your dogs every 20 seconds, having to micromanage Power Siphon every half a minute, having to micromanage Fel Covenant basically permanently, while trying to watch Fel Might and Fel Thunder effects as well. So if you want to get super involved, realistically, you want to like probably either hold Demonic Strength longer with your Tyrant being out, or you want to like micromanage Felstorm and have guaranteed Fel Thunder with bolts being launched. Because at times, with your big Tyrant out, because you want this damage amp when your Tyrant's out, theoretically. I didn't do it here. It might have overlapped. I don't know. But if you really want to micromanage it, you want to manage all of that while trying to not die. And good luck doing that in any kind of raid setting. All right, so I saved Affliction for last, which is not the best. It's actually the worst, but I mean, hey, you know, yeah, you know. I don't know what to say. Affliction's not very good. It's not like it's horrendous, but it's worse than Destro in single target and a good bit worse than Demo in single target, which I think is a problem because, I mean, AF has a niche for single target at times, depending on the build you're playing. But with how skewed this build is towards single target, I think that the number should certainly be higher. Destro, Demo, and AF were all pretty similar in like single target damage and overall output a few weeks ago before the buffs came in, the Destro and the Demo. They were both buffed. Affliction was not, and it probably needs to be because the damage output is just not as good as Destro in single target or as good as Demonology by a decent bit. So points of note here, playing Dread Touch, Malefic Afflictions, Creeping Death, Haunt, Haunted Soul, Crescendo. There is some merit to maybe playing Soul Rot over Crescendo. It's hard to say because Soul Rot feeds more into your 4-piece, which increases Rapture damage if it procs, so more dots, more Rapture damage, 4-piece increases it. It's RNG, but I mean, you know, it could be a thing. We'll see where the Sims end up landing. So, Siphon Life, Singularity, Inevitable Demise, and all that. We are playing Grim Reach behind my camera here for ID and all that, and Soul Tap. I'm not going to Soul Tap very much here because there are certain fights in the raid you can Soul Tap a lot on, and certain fights you really can't Soul Tap at all on, depending on incoming damage. So, we'll see where that goes. Look up here for the rotation if you want, and yeah, let's do it to it. So the big thing here, precast Unstable Affliction, or Haunt, precast Unstable Affliction, Agony on pull, Corruption on pull, Siphon Lamp on pull, Drain to 3 stacks of Shadow's Embrace, 2-3, Phantom Singularity, Trinket, Dark Glare, Rapture 4 times. There's 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack, and Dread Touch active now. There it is. So the big thing here, we're just going to try and maintain Dread Touch as much as possible without like being too aggressive with shard spending and not having enough for our PS window. So we're going to have PS roughly every 45 seconds, which means that your Dark Glare is going to be around a 2:20 cooldown and not 2 minutes because we're not holding for Soul Rot anymore. This spec has some RNG. We're getting a lot of procs right now, but I mean, the big thing is that we have PS coming up in about 10 seconds here. So I'm going to Rapture here. We have 3 shards. You get a Nightfall proc. I'll Rapture one more time for Dread Touch uptime. And we have PS coming up about now. I'm going to refresh Corruption, Haunt, Siphon Life, PS. And you can Rapture dump here. Dread Touch 1, 2. I'll hold like 1 shard for Dread Touch stuff and shard gen and all that. Dump the Drain. We're sitting at about 46 ID stacks, which we're getting close to a max drain here. Rapture again. UA, catch that. Haunt, Siphon Life. I'm going to dump this big drain now. Rapture for Dread Touch. Drain Soul. And just catch dots. And for the most part, it's just like Dread Touch maintenance, uptime, upkeep, all the above, whatever you want to call it. We have PS again in about 15 seconds, so our damage is not looking terrible either. It's actually higher than it's been for a good bit, but we're also like, you know, 2.5 minutes off of, I guess a minute and a half off of what, you know, we did for Destro and Demo. So, Rapture here again. Catch a Siphon Life. We have PS. We can put it up now. Rapture once or twice. Haunt's going to fall. Catch the Haunt. It's fine. Pop that. Catch the Corruption. Just drain a bit here. So, the big thing is that we have Dark Glare coming up in about 20-ish seconds here. But we're like 35 off of our PS. And our damage is dropping off a good bit here too. So, we're going to hold the Dark Glare for the PS in about 25-ish seconds. And just go from there. Maintain Dread Touch. We have Born of Valor coming up in like 5. I can dump a shard or 2 here, it's probably fine. We're getting like an insane amount of Crescendo procs and 4-piece procs as well, which is like more than what we usually get. So we're gonna Rapture again here. We're just capped on shards basically. Cast the Haunt, Rapture again, max stack Drain coming up. So I'm gonna hold this for the Horn in second tier with PS. We have PS now. I'm gonna refresh Shadow's Embrace, catch these 2 dots. I'll catch the UA quickly. Just getting a little low. PS, Horn, Dark Glare, Rapture spam. Red touches up, catch the Haunt, Rapture spam, Rapture, Rapture. I'll dump the Drain now so we're not overcapping on resources too much. Rapture, Rapture. And we're at like 40.3k, which is honestly higher than I've seen most of these Affliction like pulls and builds do. But we're not at like, you know, 42, 43 like Destro was, or even higher like certain builds of Demo was. And the big thing is like, we're going to drop off a good bit here because we don't have Dark Glare for a minute and a half. We've gotten so many like instant cast procs too, like just so many. Like this, how many... What does this look like? We've gotten 12 Crescendo, 12 for active refresh. We got a lot of Crescendo procs, just put it that way. That's a lot more than what I usually get. But yeah, I mean, the damage breakdown is what we usually see. Rapture, UA, Drain Soul, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. The damage is not bad, but like, it's also higher than I've seen from a lot of polls. Like, I don't think Warlock excels at, like, we're not ahead of the pack, or ahead of everybody else in damage. That's the thing. So for Aff to be behind Destro one single target by a bit, behind Demo by a decent bit, playing the single target focused build and things, I think it could use some buffs. We'll see where it goes, but out of all 3 specs, Aff is probably the worst one in single target. I don't think it's very close. So yeah, I guess like just sort of wrapping up all this testing into one final little segment here. I want to say that like this is just raw testing. There's no sims that are done or anything. It's just very, 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 very rough numbers. But these numbers do pretty much reflect what I've seen over the past few weeks in testing. across Destro, across Demo, and across Affliction. All these tests here, like this, and this, were all done at about the 2.5 minute mark, I believe. Nether Portal was about the 3.5, 4 minute mark, so I wanted to see another portal effect and how much damage it did. Even before the portal, though, second one, it was sitting at like 41k, I believe, roughly. Nether Portal Demo and Demon Bolt Demo are just really big RNG. Do your bolts crit when you have amps between PS and Pel Covenant and FTS and all that during your Tyrant, or do they not? Nether Portal Demo, do you get Neurotool's Volition procs? Do you get just big crits from your Pit Lord, right? Because they pushed these buffs to Demo a couple weeks ago, a week ago, I think. It was a buff to Vile Fiend, a buff to Grimoire, a buff to Anilian Training, a buff to Imp Gang Boss, obviously, a buff to raw Tyrant damage. But the big thing, I mean, like, both Bolt build and Portal build can grab all those, right? Even Pet build can, right? But the one big thing was that I think Bolt build was ahead by a little bit, or very close to Portal build, but they also buffed the Pit Lord by, I believe, 20 or 25%, which adds even more RNG in a sense to that with Neurotool's Volition. Plus, I think we're getting a little better at min-maxing like Pit Lord setups and all that. Pit Lord build has the highest overall potential, I think, in single target, like to get PI by a good bit for Demo over Bolt build and certainly Pet build. This is what I've seen, though, mostly in testing over the past few weeks. Like, top tier, at least for me, is Portal Demo, followed by Demon Bolt Demo, and then like Destro, and then these two builds are just terrible. AF needs buffs. I don't really know how you address Pet Demo. Like, if you're playing, I have the build here, so maybe. I don't know how you change this build, right? Because, like, even with, like, if you buff Tyrant, that buffs Nether Portal. That buffs Bolt build. If you buff Reign of Tyranny, like, you could buff Reign of Tyranny, but if Reign of Tyranny is better than Wilfred's, Bolt build, or better than this thing, whatever it's called. I'm gonna call it Wilfred's forever. If it's better than this thing, every build will play it, right? I don't know how you buff this build if they want to without hitting Portal as well and hitting Bolt as well and giving them more value. So we'll see. It's not really a me kind of problem, but as of right now, it looks to be like in single target and stuff. Demo followed by Destro and then AF. If I had to rank it from top to bottom, I mean Nether Portal Demo followed by Bolt Demo. If not, Destro being very, very close to each other here, both being RNG. And then, well, you know, either this being 2 and 3, these two right here, and then 4 being AF and 5 being Pet Demo. It's just not very good. So thanks for watching, guys. That should wrap it up. Hopefully this video helped clarify just how Destro, Demo, and AF are all looking in like a single target, I guess, sort of raid setting, replicated raid setting, tuning wise at this point. Now, Affliction does appear to be the worst like build, I guess, spec out there, barring the Pet Demo build, which is just terrible as well. But I would guess that AF probably gets some buffs at some point. It's a pretty heavily like single target focused build, and the damage is just not there. We had a lot of really good procs, and it was still the worst build by a couple thousand DPS. So we'll see where it goes. Destro got buffed considerably, Demo got buffed considerably. Only AF is left, but they did nerf it today. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, hopefully it gave y'all a better perspective on what's going on with Warlock. We are nearly 2 weeks away from launch, about a month away from the raid opening. Actually, literally a month away from the raid opening today. So we'll see what happens. Now, Blizzard's going to be tuning classes literally probably until the raid opens, maybe even that day. And normal, heroic, and mythic all open at the same time. So there's even more incentive, I guess, if you're Blizzard, depending how you want to word it, to get it all right. Because if you don't, and one class is like really busted, that could very well affect the Race to World First. And whether you watch the Race to World First or not, you have to acknowledge the fact that it is probably one of the most televised events for WoW every so often, every few months, barring other events, obviously. You know what I mean. So we'll see where it goes. The holidays are close too, though, so maybe they'll buff Lock and leave us busted and let us finish up before Christmas. We'll see. So, but yeah, let me know if I missed any builds down below in the comment section, or if it's just any talents that I maybe didn't play that you guys think I should be playing. I know someone's gonna say Demonic Calling. As much as I like Demonic Calling, it's fun. I don't think it's needed, but hey, you know, we'll see what happens. Sims aren't done yet, and I mean, we have a month or so till the raid launches. I would assume that they're done by then, but it's been a lot of just, you know, back and forth just testing between different specs, different builds, and raid testing, and plus and dummy testing, and this is sort of where we landed. So I wanted to give y'all a look as to how things, well, mostly just are. So while you're down there, smash the like and sub buttons, because I sort of forgot, but it does help out a ton. So I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Guys, thank you for all supporting Patreon 10,000 times. I really appreciate it. It allows me to continue doing what I'm doing and making content for you guys, and I really truly do appreciate all that support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, for you guys that want any week URLs or add-ons from this video, link down below to the Discord and the Twitch, which you can just type !WA in chat and it will pull it up for you. The Wago, everything's free in there if you guys would like it. And yeah, all that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again on stream. Peace.